Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, Richie.
Hello, Trisha. Thank you very much for having me. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for being here today. We have Richie Billing, epic fantasy author. Maybe you shouldn't do epic at the front, but definitely fantasy. Your book, Pariah's Lament, is an epic fantasy, and I can't wait to learn all about it. You want to jump in?
Yeah, so Pariah's Lament, that came out a few years ago now, but it's more of like an underdog story about a pariah, a social outsider, who called Izzy, and she was born with a birthmark on her face. So she's very much ostracized, and she's regarded as the cursed one in a village. So her life's pretty rubbish. She's pretty suicidal, if anything. There's not much left to
Oh.
live for. But she loves books. So I quite like to tie it in with readers that way. And then she ends up getting kidnapped by this mysterious race of people no one knows anything about. And it turns out that they've been caught up in a war that's brewing in between the two kingdoms in the story. And they turn to Izzy to help them. And while all that's going on, there's a lot of political intrigue, a lot of assassination attempts, and this is all sort of viewed through the perspective of a young advisor to the king called Edvar. And he's a very similar character to Izzy, but his arc is inverted almost because he's starting at the top. His life's going pretty good. And then he has a massive fall from grace and then a big redemption. And during the sort of the curve of these two arcs, Izzy and Edvar meet, and then the paths become entwined. And I won't say no more.
Wow, that sounds really fun. So is it a world like outside of our world, or is it kind of contemporary? What is the feel of the book?
Yeah, so it's very much like a fantasy world, completely different place, hopefully somewhere you've never seen before. Um, but it's part of a shared universe. So um, the way I got into this, the publisher of Metal and Magic, and they created this what they call a shared world, where it's a time period over like 1,000 years, and there's a bit of lore and a bit of this is what's happened kind of thing, bit of a framework, and you've got to fit in your stories around that. So they opened up submissions, and I submitted a pitch and agreed to populate the world with this story. So that's how it came about, and it's quite interesting writing with other authors and trying to fit your story into what's already there. Because when I wrote the first draft, I was like, yeah, this feels pretty good. And then I sent it to the editors of the publisher, and they were like, no, this doesn't tie in with anything.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I've heard about those worlds that, different authors, and my cat's going to come across the screen. So sorry about that.
Mine
Um,
might appear as well.
yeah, I've heard about those worlds where different authors write different stories in the same kind of framework around that. So what was your first story? How different was it from the story that got published?
It was just wasn't tied in with the sort of lore at all, and I'd
Oh,
sort of
okay.
developed a bit of a magic system which didn't tie in as well. So I had to cut things, and that was a bit frustrating. And I think that's why I've found like the projects that I've worked on since a lot more rewarding and satisfying because it's all me, if you get me.
Okay. Right, yeah.
So I brought a novella out in March this year called Together We Rise, which is a shortish story, and it just follows the events of a single day in a pretty grim fantasy city. And it's about the people rising up against the corrupt rulers to take back control of the futures. So that has been quite relevant to what's going on at the moment in the world. It's very much different to Pariah's Lament because it's very much rooted in characters. It's more of a grimdark story, more urban fantasy than Pariah's Lament. Um, so it's different writing these like stories of different scales because epic fantasy sometimes it's just too much. I think George R. Martin will agree with that. Like he's created something that's too big. It's
You can't
too
finish it,
hard
right?
to
Like
control.
how do you
Yeah,
even know how to finish something like that?
I know. But it's quite refreshing then writing a story that's just set in a specific city and even just specific areas of a city. And as a writer, that's great because you don't have to do that much world building and you can devote more creative energy into your characters, which personally for me, I don't know if you agree, but that is the main reason people read stories is for the characters. Um, yeah, so that's the focus of late.
Interesting. Yeah, I my books are really character based too, and I do like creating a bit of the world and some lore and magic systems too, but I'm always seeing my characters, or my characters are always seeing my books through the first person point of view. So it's very much their experience and getting themes from whatever their challenge is and things like that. So do you follow in Together We Rise? Do you have a first person point of view or do you have a third person
Oh,
perspective?
do you know what? I think I've only ever written this one short story from first person. It's not something that I automatically go to, but when I have experimented with it, I do enjoy it. I don't know why the default is third person limited. I don't like omniscient perspectives at all because it's just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Whose head are we
Yeah.
in? So I just try and keep it quite limited, but usually third person. But I agree with you that when you write a first person story, it is a lot more intimate and you can connect a lot more, get into the character's head a lot more. So yeah, hopefully I will experiment more with that. But so far, no.
Well, when I talk to authors, they're usually either this is most comfortable for me, whatever tense or a point of view they write in. It seems that whatever that is, it's most comfortable for them. And doing something outside of that takes a little more work. Like I've done two short stories in third person, but it definitely challenges my brain more than my natural first person. And maybe that's just how I like to read. So that's how my brain thinks. And, your brain may think the other way. So, yeah.
Better than second person anyway.
Oh yeah, I there are very few second persons out there, so yeah, that tends to be a bit different. I just, I did some research on point of view a little bit ago, and it was interesting to learn more about second person. But we can not geek out about author writing, right? So, who are the characters in Together We Rise?
So we've got 8 characters in Together We Rise, and each character has their own part. And I like to think of it as a relay race. So each character takes the story up to a certain point and passes it on to the next character. And so we've got the reason why I wanted to do this, I should explain it first, is I decided to write Together We Rise because I was very frustrated with the way the world currently is. And when I was writing it, the way the world was heading. So I think in the author's note at the back of the book, I say the day I finished editing the story was the day Trump got elected to a second term. So you can see the way things are going before then. Um, and yeah, I was just very frustrated, feeling very helpless, very despondent. And I know a lot of people um, are feeling the same in the world. So, as a way of sort of dealing with those feelings, I decided to write this story, and I wanted to do a bit more than just tell a fantasy story. I wanted to try and like get into the reasons and the issues why we're feeling this way. And one of my favorite TV shows of all time is The Wire. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Wire, but the reason for me is because it's not just a piece of artwork, it's almost like a critique. It's like a visual essay of the war on drugs and how it's absolutely destroyed society and any sort of deferential attitudes to authority. It's literally created a war on the streets. Um, and to the reason why it did that so well is because it brought in so many different perspectives. It looked at the drug dealers, the children, the press reporting on it, um, honest working people trying to get by in a city that's in decline and there's no hope for them, there's no future. And it was just so wonderfully done. I was like, that's the sort of if you, it's almost like an academic level of critiquing something. So I was looking at Together We Rise, I was like, well, there's certain perspectives that I have to get in here. Um, and the story starts with the healer. And I think he's quite an interesting figure because he obviously doesn't want to be putting people back together and amputating limbs and stuff like that after people have accidents at work and stuff. If things were better, then life for everyone else would be better. So he basically paper over the cracks all the time, and then it moves on to the worker, and you get to see what, like, I mean, I just mirror working conditions in it used to be commonplace in our countries, but more common now in sort of developing countries. And these sort of conditions that people are forced to live, and it's all done for profit, and it sickens me so much. um, the exploitative nature of the system. And then it looks at like the drug dealers, because these are basically products of capitalism and this sort of this dog eat dog world and attitude that's sort of instilled in people, and it corrupts people and it makes them do things that they shouldn't do because but they see the rewards. And like where I'm growing up, when I was a kid, there was no money anywhere. So the people who did have money were the drug dealers, or occasionally you saw football players driving past in nice cars. So they're the role models that people have got, drug dealers and football players. So you're either going to be a footy player or a drug dealer. I mean, that's a bit of a generalization, but like you can get a bit of a sense for what these sort of options are for people. Um, and then I look at the children as well because the children get caught up in all of this and they just get fed into the machine and they very much live out cycles. Like we can, for some people, you could almost predict the cycle that the life will go through and the kind of things that they'll get stuck into. Um, and also police officers because they're victims as much as anyone. I couldn't think of anything worse than being sent out to deal with some of these protests and like the people they must sympathize with them on some level. So you could see there's all these different perspectives that I'm trying to draw upon because the issues don't affect any single person. It's not like an argument about left-wing politics or right-wing politics or anything like that. We all live in the same world. We're all experiencing these things. And for me, probably one of the nicest things that came about when I released this book is because I am typically left wing. If I had to put a definition on it, but one of the first people who wrote to me after reading the book was a Trump supporter and said, "Yeah, I get this completely," and that's the point. It's like we're all in the situation together. These are the issues. This is my view on it. Hopefully, you can relate. And hopefully it gives people a bit of hope that they're seeing these ordinary people who are experiencing these sort of conflicts in their life. Um, Gives them a bit of hope that they can do something, that they're not helpless and they're not despondent and they feel like they've got no future. So that was a bit of a rambly explanation, but I think it
No, yeah, it
got
sounds super interesting. It's really neat that you put all those perspectives into one book in one day. And yeah, I can't wait to read it and see like where this comes out in the end and how these people kind of overcome what's going on in their city, maybe as a mirror. But yeah, I can imagine that it would attract many more readers too, because one person might not necessarily, um, bond with maybe the drug dealer or the healer, but may bond with the worker or the child, or, as a parent, you may see like how it's affecting children, and or what is the police officer's view of this. Even it's their job, but you have differing feelings about what's going on in the world, but you still have to do your job. So yeah, it seems like a really rich story.
Thank you. It's been quite nice because the audiobook is going to be coming out in December.
Okay.
And it's been very nice listening to it. And the narrator, Robin Kopak, I don't know. I don't know about yourself. Have you done many audiobooks with your stories?
Yes, I have. And I read books via audiobook almost exclusively. So I
Oh, amazing.
I tend to be
Yeah.
picky.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to get your opinion if you ever listen to it. But I'm quite new to audiobooks. I've listened to them. I don't listen to them religiously. I prefer to read. But um, it's amazing what a narrator can do. And listening to him and the way he sort of brings the characters to life with the different voices and the emotion he puts into things, it almost feels like you've got like a play in your mind and you're watching it being performed on a stage. And yeah, I don't know. It's just these different elements of the story really give it life. So if you're not a fan of the written word, then the audiobook will be out at Christmas.
That's no, I mean, I am a fan of books and ebooks. It's just that I stare at my computer so long during the day that
Yeah.
I'd rather have a
Hard.
paperback or an audiobook, one or the other, because, on a
Yeah.
device, it's still on a device. My eyes are like glazing over by
Oh
the end of
no.
the day. But
It's tough.
yeah, I agree that hearing your own book in audiobook format does seem like that gives another like dimension to your story and kind of creates a neat world.
Mm.
So where are you going next? Do you have any future projects or ideas?
Yeah, I'm debating what to do. I've got really fed up with writing novels, to be honest. So I've moved away from long fiction, and that's why I like Together We Rise because I'm nice and short, nice and easy to edit. Not worse than editing 100,000 words, I'll be honest. So yeah, I've just been really enjoying short fiction this year. I've uh, written an awful lot, got quite a lot published so far, which I've been very lucky and very happy about. And I've also been populating my Patreon page with a lot of short fiction. So, um, as we're recording this, Halloween's a few days away. So I've been doing like a little literary festival of micro horror fiction, with new short stories or new micro fiction stories every day up in the run up to Halloween, and I do like a fantasy comedy because obviously Together We Rise is a bit heavy going, but myself I'm a bit more light-hearted, and even Together We Rise there'll be funny moments in it, hopefully, and just my sense of humor. But I've decided to write something a bit more light-hearted, a bit more leaning to that side. So, it's a series about this group of really useless and incompetent monster hunters. And they live in a world where there's like a sort of bounty system of contracts where all these different crews of monster hunters compete to win these contracts and then got to slay these monsters to get paid. But they're just really bad at it. So that's been quite fun. And that comes out like chapter a week. Um, and then next year I'm going to do a novel. I've gotten over my hatred of them. So I'm gonna. I don't know what to do though. Have you ever found yourself in this situation where you've got two good ideas that you want to do, but you're not sure which one to go for? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I was just doing that. I had two books started, and it just turned out that one of them seemed heavier than the other one, and I wasn't in the mood to like put my
Mm,
characters through something heavy, so I chose to go with the lighter one. So for me, sometimes it's an emotional decision, like because
yeah.
I just finished a series and I got my characters out of what they were in, and I thought I can't put another character through, like, because you always have to put them through stuff to get them out the other side, right? So I
Yeah.
get very bonded with my characters, and then I don't know, I get low and I'm like, I can't do it right now. So I chose to go with the lighter one.
That's it's a really good point that you make though, because it's a feeling, isn't it? Like you probably know inside what one feels right next. Because like I say, I one of the options I started years ago, and I only wrote the first four chapters, and then for some reason just took a step back. I was like, oh, because I think I was working on something else at the time when I was like cheating on the project. So I came back to it later, and the first chapter actually ended up getting shortlisted in the first chapter competition. So that's a good sign that I'm onto something with it. But I've never gone back to it, and I'm debating whether to do that now. But I've got this other idea, which is quite exciting.
Uh,
So I don't know what to
you,
do.
you sound excited about the new idea, I have to say.
I don't know. I'm just seeing how long the excitement lasts.
Mm.
It's like when you get an idea, you're like, I want to get a tattoo. It's like, oh, well, just see how you feel about that tattoo in a year. And then before you commit to it, that kind of thing.
A year is a long time. I could not wait that long in a tattoo. But there are some people that like just walk into a tattoo place and are like, that one, that's the one I want. I am not, I'm sort of in the middle between a year and the day of. So yeah, fun. Together We Rise sounds is amazing. Tell everyone where we can find the book as well as you.
So Together We Rise is available everywhere online and in paperback. Audiobook will be out in December, on the 11th of December, all being well. And you can also buy it on Patreon, digital version there. Bit cheaper than Amazon, but the price is currently only 99 cents, so bit of a
Oh,
bargain if you
yeah,
ask
I
me.
think we can afford that.
Yeah, so you can head over there. If you'd rather a signed paperback, you can always email me, and I'm always happy to ship. And yeah, that's the best place to go. And if you're just interested generally in more stuff, then Patreon is the best place to go for my written stuff. And I've got a lot of stuff for writers on my website, richiebilling.com. And I've got another book on writing, a Fantasy Writers Handbook, and also a podcast about writing fantasy called the Fantasy Writers Toolshed.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, you can find some interesting interviews with um, better writers than I. There's Jennifer Armentrout's been on the show,
Okay.
Jadrian Tchaikovsky, Steve Ian, and I get like to get interesting guests as well. So I've had a former FBI special agent who's also an expert in body language. So you get some interesting things, even if you're not interested in writing. So
Oh yeah, that is interesting. Very cool. I'll have to tune into that and learn something new. And yeah, that pings my brain. I wanted to loop back to microfiction. I hadn't heard that term before. How do
Mm.
you define that?
It's just stories that are limited to 100 words. And a few years ago, a writing friend of mine who sadly passed away, called Charles Remington, he asked me to submit to a book that he was editing, and it was called Nano Nightmares, and that was nano fiction. So that was two sentence horror stories.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, do you know what? I enjoyed it at the time and got a few published. And I was like, this year I wanted to do something for Halloween. Um, and I was like, oh, in honor of Charles, let's do some two sentence horror stories. So I started trying them, but I ended up two sentences is hard. So I end up doing these crazy sentence structures with like lots of commas and M dashes
Okay.
and semicolons. And it just gets a bit too mad, to be honest. So I ended up extending it to 100 words that is classed as microfiction. So I like to zoom in on things that we find psychologically unsettling, like classic horror, monsters. Um, yeah, so there's a nice mix. I managed to do 14. So I think it's a great exercise for anyone who wants to do writing. It's really simple. Is it's just thinking about a character, getting a bit of an idea of who they are, where they are in their life, and expressing that in as few words as possible, and then developing your horror elements. But you can write about any kind of story. But I like horror for these kinds because it gives you that quick emotional like jab.
Oh, neat. Yeah, that would be challenging. I Short stories are challenging for me, and I just went through a process. I had one that I needed to submit for a magazine, and it started out at 8,000 words, and I told my editor, well, this is supposed to be 5,000 words. And she said, oh my goodness. But we got it down. We got it down to like
Yeah,
49.98 or something.
nice.
But I
Nice. It's
wrote,
fun.
also took a class in screenplay writing, which really helps you, I think, hone and condense like your plot and really
Mm.
simplify to like that one plot line, the one character line, the most important thing in your book. And I think so a lot of those tools can be good for writers because it helps you with those different elements of the story.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, short stories for years I could not get my head around how to capture the story in that one moment. But it's just what I've learned from some really, really good short story writers is how to capture the moments, like a key point in this character's life. Either it's like a choice that they've got to make, either through sometimes it's not something that they want to have to do. Um, and then you're looking at the consequences. You're looking to raise the stakes. You don't want things to go the way, and you want to raise the stakes even more. And when you start thinking about these kind of ingredients that you need, it helps you give you sort of in your mind, and you can sort of gather the pieces that you need to fit that kind of structure. For me, it was always the structure that I struggled with, is capturing that moment in as few words as possible. But I think the more you practice, the more you write, and it gives you more confidence as well to play with different forms. So, like this year, I had a short story published, and it was a to-do list, a weekly to-do list for a goblin, um, which is quite fun to write. Like, so it was just bullet points.
Mhm.
That's all it was. And then I've done another one where it's a series of Uber reviews from
Oh,
customers about a
interesting.
single driver
Mhm.
that tell the story of this driver's mental breakdown. It's a
Oh,
very long read.
interesting. Wow. Yeah, those are lots of different formats.
Yeah,
Those
it's
are
fun.
fun to explore. I like reading like Bram Stoker, who like tells the
Mm,
story in letters and diaries and things like that too. So it's, I mean, like that a little bit sounds like, it's kind of hearkening those different mo
yeah,
modes of telling a story, right?
definitely. Yeah, that's a really nice idea. And like, I suppose modern day now, we've got all these like instant messages. You can do it through that. I think as someone was telling me, they did told a story through Amazon reviews as well.
Okay.
Uh, it's really interesting, and once you start to play around, it's amazing to see where your mind takes you.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're one of the more creative authors I've talked to because, I mean, mostly I talk to novelists, so sometimes poets, but yeah, so I had never thought like that far. I guess it's not that far outside the box, but it's just a different medium that, yeah, it sounds very
Mm.
interesting.
And one thing I've started to do is to pair written words and written stories with other elements like music. And so I mean, there's a lot of new tools available now, and obviously I've always worked with artists when it comes to books and stuff, but for quick little stories I like to do sometimes little soundtracks, which I'll just make myself, and it works quite well. Like Together We Rise as a soundtrack, and each song, there's a song for each character, and each song mirrors that character's emotional journey. So if you've got the paperback, you can scan the QR code at the beginning of the chapter
Oh,
and listen to
fun.
the song. The songs don't last the full chapter. I'm not, uh, I'm not John Williams, let's say. Yeah, but it'll give you a flavor sometimes, because I don't know if you've ever watched like t films and TV shows, the scores really don't have drag you in, and they almost trigger the emotional responses sometimes. And I think books should be able to do that as well. So
Right,
that's why
that's
I
such a good
decided to
idea.
do
Yeah, when I'm writing, I always create playlists for my
it. Mm,
books and my because I mean, it's fun. Sometimes if I get stuck, I'll just like look for a song that kind of mirrors what I'm writing. But that's neat that you included those. And it's funny because I'm always watching shows and wondering if like because the music is foreboding, something foreboding is going to happen, right?
mm.
But then that kind of gives it away if they play foreboding music before something bad happens, right? So they try to give it away? Do they not try to give it away? So I don't know.
Yeah, I know
All
what you
that
mean.
strategy, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology that goes into it.
Well, fun. Well, thank you so much, Richie, for being here. I hope you'll come back when you publish your next work. I won't say book because it sounds like you write so many different things. And we will follow you on Patreon as well as richiebilling.com, right? That's your website.
Yeah, thank you very
Okay.
much again, Trisha. It's been
Thank
lovely
you.
chatting with you.
Bye.
Bye bye.